Alright, what is up, fantasy fans? As always, I'm Shay from the channel Zachary Shay, and today I'm going to be going over my top 10 favorite mercenary characters. So this is another episode of Tropeborn where I talk about a familiar fantasy trope. I give some of my favorite examples of this. Some of these will be a perfect example of what a mercenary embodies, some will be a deconstruction of mercenaries. And the mercenary is a character that takes on odd jobs, that is fighting for the pay. This is not a soldier. They do not owe loyalty to a nation. They are fighting for their own self-interests. That being said, a few on this list do kind of challenge what it means to be a mercenary in interesting ways, and we'll get to that. So first, I'm going to start with some honorable mentions. So I have two honorable mentions. First, I'm going to go with Shimmer from Novels of the Malazan Empire by Ian C. Esselmont. We sell our blades, not our faith. You survive long enough, and eventually endurance becomes its own kind of victory. An oath is not a thing you wear, it is a thing that wears you. We do not break. Big reason why Shimmer is only in the honorable mention spot is while the Crimson Guard may start out as a mercenary crew or a mercenary company, there's a lot more loyalty within them. And she is my favorite member of the Crimson Guard. But the thing is, the Crimson Guard no longer feels like a mercenary. They're more bound by their oaths, though they do have to take on jobs to, keep the garrison fed, to keep the garrison going and to continue their mission to bring down the Malazan Empire. But because of that, and because she is not a solo mercenary, she's not fitting quite what I'm trying to hit within this Tropeborn episode. So for that, she is an honorable mention. And then next up, this character is an honorable mention mostly because I wanted to keep it to one character per series. And there's another character within this book, within this series, that I think ranks a little bit higher in this department. But I'm talking about Nikimo Koska from the First Law universe, mainly Best Served Cold, but also Before They Are Hanged and Red Country. I am a soldier of fortune. If fortune deserts me, I desert the soldiering. Loyalty is for men with something left to lose. I am a hero in my own mind and a villain in everyone else's. I have learned that the secret to success is low expectations. Nikimo Koska, man, he is a blast of a character to follow. And I think he's one of the best examples of how sometimes a noble-ish character in one person's POV can be a dastardly vile character in another character's POV, because he was very easy to root for in some books and very easy to hate in others. And yeah, Nikimo Koska, he was a blast to read about. He took over every single scene he was in. Whether you love him or hate him, you cannot say that this man did not have stage presence within the story. And so for my number 10 pick, we have a character that honestly would not enjoy being called a mercenary. He's more of a monster hunter, but he fits within that, like, taking on jobs for money, but he's very particular. He will not harm humans for money. Like, that's not what he is. And I'm talking about the Butcher of Blaviken, Geralt of Rivia, the White Wolf from the Witcher series. If I'm to choose between one evil and another, then I'd prefer not to choose at all. People like to invent monsters and monstrosities. Then they seem less monstrous themselves. Evil is evil, Stregobor. Lesser, greater, middling. It's all the same. I do not believe in destiny. It's just a convenient excuse. So when I first read The Last Wish, I didn't really understand Geralt. It's only on a reread. I DNF'd it the first time, reread it, and loved this first collection of short stories. He's very much a deconstruction of what it means to be a mercenary. Although he does take on these jobs, there's a lot more nobility to him at heart, and that's what I enjoyed when I came back, is that killing monsters is not an easy job and someone has to do it. And the person who has to do it, they need money. They need to be able to feed themselves, to clothe themselves, to afford their tools to continue to carry out their profession. So it's much like being a soldier. You can kind of cast a negative light and be like, well, what a terrible person is charging people to take out these monsters. Well, someone had to do it, and he is signing up for the job. He is risking his life for others. He's definitely different from the typical fantasy hero in that he doesn't just do this for the glory of it, but in those idealized version of the hero character within a sword and sorcery narrative, they don't have to worry about bills. They don't have to worry about stabling prices. They don't have to worry about all these different things that in the real world we would. So I do admire Geralt of Rivia for protecting the weak, for being a hero, but he also, he has to charge. Geralt of Rivia is my number 10 pick. And for my number 9 pick, we're going to go sci-fi, and we're going to bring up a character from one of my favorite series, Sun Eater by Christopher Rocchio. And the character I'm talking about is Octavia Corvo. I think it was Octavia of whom the ancient Herodotus spoke when he wrote of the Amazons. Whether by design or by incident of nature, she stood nearly 7 feet high as a palatine. Even sitting, she radiated the threat of the coiled serpent, arms crossed, broad shoulders hunched, betraying the corded muscle that hid beneath the crimson uniform. She alone of all our captains was the true-blooded mercenary, and knew no oath to Jad or to the solar throne. She was free and fierce, and her word was final. While I love Corvo, she's one of my favorite characters of the Red Company. The reason she's lower on this list at number 9 is because she very much becomes loyal to Hadrian and is not doing it just for the money, but she does have roots in a mercenary type role. So I'm including her here, but Octavia Corvo, she is strong, she is resilient. She is one of the best characters within Rocchio's world, many worlds, and she was a blast to follow anytime she was on the page, much like there's several characters in here that take up space on the page. Octavia Corvo is one of them. Balca's one of them. Polino's one of them. Lorien Aristides is one of them. And it was just such a blast following her and the rest of the Red Company, who technically were not mercenaries and were actually loyal to the Empire in a way. My number 8 pick is going to be another character from First Law, and I'm willing to bet once people saw Nikimo Koska as an honorable mention, you probably assumed that Monskara Mercado would be my number 8 pick. One cannot grow without pain. One cannot improve without it. Suffering drives us to achieve great things. Good steel bends, but never breaks. Good steel stays always sharp and ready. Good steel feels no pain, no pity, and above all, no remorse. Monskara Mercado, she is the character to lead the first standalone within the First Law universe. I very much enjoyed Best Served Cold more than the original trilogy. I thought it was a great, fun, action-packed thriller. I enjoyed Monskara Mercado's character quite a bit. She's a little too dastardly to be one of my faves, but I read this years and years and years ago, and she still stuck out in my memory as one of my favorite First Law characters. So she has definitely fought her way onto this list. She's a very flawed character. She's true to being a mercenary. She is not a deconstruction like Geralt and like some other characters that will appear on this list, but she is a bat mercenary, and she's fun to follow, even though within the confines of this story, we find her after her mercenary days, and she's now fighting a much more personal battle. This isn't about the money anymore. So if you have not read Best Served Cold, I recommend it. It's a really good book and a great place to start within the First Law universe. For my number 7, I'm going to go with Guts from the Golden Age arc of Berserk. Now, I'm including Guts here, kind of lower on the list. Not low, but he's at the number 7 spot because for most of Berserk, he is not a mercenary anymore. He does not take on jobs, though he is driven by somewhat selfish needs or selfless, depending on how you look at it. He is not taking on jobs for money, but that is where we find him at the beginning of the Golden Age arc when he joins the mercenary band of the Band of the Hawk. Yeah. When he joins the Band of the Hawk, he is a traveling mercenary. They challenge him. He joins them. And for most of the Golden Age arc, he is that mercenary working for that Band of the Hawk. Guts is inarguably one of the greatest manga characters of all time. I have my issues with Berserk. I think some of the sexual violence was unnecessary. Mainly the stuff in the Golden Age arc that people generally think of when I say that. That part didn't bother me as much because it was vital to the character work, but there's a lot throughout, not just one specific scene, just the overall presence of that sexual violence throughout the series doesn't take it off of my like favorites manga list, but it does make it feature lower than other stories like One Piece and Mobile Suit Gundam that I think are also excellent stories that don't include that. But I will always love Berserk. I have a Berserk tattoo of Guts and Casca, so it's very near and dear to my heart. And then next up, I'm going to mention a character from the brilliant Red Rising series, and that is Ephraim. I don't rat, and I don't play with the Syndicate. Man has to have a code. Aja might be dust, but men and women just like that bitch walk the worlds because the people holding your leash couldn't follow through. Should put a gray as sovereign. At least we finish shit. By the time I'm through with you, you'll be such a lie detector that you'll never be able to go to another brothel without having an existential crisis. So Ephraim's a character that shows up during the second half of Pierce Brown's Red Rising saga in Iron Gold, and he is a gray, and he kind of works antagonistically to some of our other POV characters, but he is a joy to follow. Him and his other crewmates, especially Volga, are a joy to read about, and their interactions are so well written. To me, it was one of the highlights of Iron Gold. He was my favorite new character within Iron Gold, and I think he personifies what a mercenary is very well. He takes on jobs for money. He has suffered a loss that we, the readers, are not privy to at the very beginning, so I won't spoil that, but he has suffered a loss, and he is trying to fill that void and trying to keep himself busy and trying to make money. He is far from the noble protagonist that we got in the first 3 books, but not necessarily as evil as some of the characters in Red Rising. He is true to his species. He is a gray. He's morally gray. He's in the middle, and I really enjoyed his character. I thought he was a highlight of the second half of Red Rising. And at my number 5 spot, I have my favorite character from this series, and that is Bedecked from the Manifest Illusion series by Michael R. Fletcher. Rotting heart cut from chest, taste the cold of love's last breath, stealing love but never rest, no escape from living death. What I enjoy about Bedecked is he takes jobs for money, but he's very much trying to be that better person. He's trying to be the hero that he should have been. I love what a lot of other characters describe Bedecked as. He's the only sane character in an insane world. And to be sane in this world is to be insane. But I love seeing his sanity juxtaposed to the rest of the world. Not just the insane Geistenkraken that inhabit this world, the clinically insane that are able to use different abilities, but even the masses that kind of form around these Geistenkraken and give in to this, are easily influenced by these sociopaths, basically. And Bedecked is one of the only people in this world that's like, nah, this is crazy. But then he takes on jobs for money. He's not a morally upright person. He does some pretty despicable things, even to people that he would count as friends, even to people loyal to him. But you can tell of all the characters in this series, he's the one most trying to be better. And I admire him for that. And he's my 5th favorite mercenary. And my number 4 pick is going to be a character from the First Earth saga by Rob J. Hayes, and that is the Blackthorn. Thorn wants vengeance on all those who have wronged him. It's a long list. Beaten, battered, and damn near broken, with the bounty on his head so large he's tempted to turn himself in, the Blackthorn finds himself on trial for the crime of being him. Despite the impending probability of death, he has but one thought on his mind: taking revenge against the Arbiter who took his eye. So before I get into the character of the Blackthorn, I just want to go on a little rant. So a lot of people have been reading Where Loyalties Lie. The Spiffbo Contest of Champions is going on, and a lot of people want to read the different books that have won. Here's the thing. Where Loyalties Lie is not where you should start within that world, in my opinion. I think you should read the Ties That Bind trilogy first, in which the Blackthorn features very heavily. Then you can read Where Loyalties Lie and the Fifth Empire of Man. and then read City of Kings, which in my opinion, while one of the shortest of the bunch, is the best book within the First Earth saga. It's so good. It's about a city at siege. It follows a lot of the characters from the second book within the Ties That Bind trilogy, and foremost amongst them is the Blackthorn. He is a lot like Logan Ninefingers without the craziness inside him, and if he was more adamant about being a better person. What I really love about the Blackthorn is, to me, he is what a true morally gray character looks like. He's done some terrible things, he's done some reprehensible things, but he's not beyond redemption. And so many morally gray characters, what people really mean is they're written to be likable, but they're actually vile, reprehensible people. Most Abercrombie characters fall into this, not necessarily from the Age of Madness and not necessarily from The Devils, but from a lot of his other work. These people are just evil. They're just, you pair them back, they've done things that are, I don't want to say anyone's beyond redemption, but they do things that make me question if they're beyond redemption. Whereas the Blackthorn does some pretty awful, despicable things, but I feel like I don't feel bad rooting for him. Though his wife, on the other hand, is she's a little bit darker than morally gray. And I guess he's complicit in some of her actions. So I guess I don't really know what I'm talking about. But I do love the Blackthorn as a character. I love his voice. I love his relationships. I love Henry is another character in this series. Anyway, more people need to read the Ties That Bind trilogy and to read City of Kings. Don't just stop after reading Where Loyalties Lie. There's a problematic scene in Where Loyalties Lie that bothers a lot of people. I still recommend, even if you were turned off by Where Loyalties Lie, give the Ties That Bind trilogy a try. I believe it's The Enemy Within. Anyway, you can look up the Ties That Bind trilogy by Rob J. Hayes, and that series is awesome. It's a great trilogy. You can read it in a few days. They're all very short. They have like 2 or 3 POVs. Very low effort to read those books. They're not super complicated, but they are a ton of fun. And I think it's some of the best books of Rob J. Hayes' career. And now we get into my top 3 Mercenaries. A lot of this list can be kind of fluid. These 3 are very firmly the top 3. Now, all of them have only had one book to impress me. There's a standalone here. There's a book series with only one book out, and there's a book series with only one book that I've read. But all of these Mercenaries have had one book to impress me, and they've risen above all the others. So first, I'm going to start with Jespar Tremoresti.
The mind is a malleable thing. Soil, if you're feeling poetic. Depending on the seed, anything will grow in it. From graceful gardens to idyllic meadows. From weedy forests to foggy swamps, harmonious or chaotic, peaceful or perilous, healthy or ill. It's all a matter of seeds. People are so quick to point at all those inspiring stories of catharsis, completely ignoring the fact that the vast majority of broken never beat their demons, that the drunkard son stayed with the bottle, the war widow never conquered her loneliness, and the defiled child never wiped that imagined black stain from their soul. Because in a world that worshipped the victorious, who the hell wanted to hear about the defeated? If you fight injustice with injustice, no matter how deserved it may feel, you'll always end up as just another turn of the wheel. If your mind is the enemy, where do you run?
Jespar Tremoresti, or in my edition, because I have it when it was called Enderal before it was called 12th World, Jespar Delveric. Yeah, so Jespar Delveric, Jespar Tremoresti, Jespar. He is a mercenary character who gets hired to go delve into the dreams of the world's wealthiest man to save him from his coma. He has to find a dreamwalker to bring him on this Inception-like mission. Now, the thing about Jespar that I find so fascinating, he's the son of a noble who joined a sort of mercenary crew that's kind of like the Peace Corps. Like, they occupy conquered areas and give supplemental aid to the different people that have been, conquered. But he wasn't, out there hurting people for money. He had a different job assigned to him, and some terrible things happen there that you find out more as the book goes on. But he gets hired to take on this job later in life, and you can tell that Jespar is not a character that loves himself. He's not even a character that likes himself. And the journey he goes on in this book is very powerful. And I will just say, books 2 and 3, part 1 and part 2 of The Cure for Living will be coming out shortly, and that will determine whether he ends up at the number 2 or the number 3 spot. I'm pretty sure my number 1 is set in stone, but it will determine whether or not he's number 2 or number 3. Likewise, the following books for my number 2 character will determine, where they're going to sit at by the end of it all. But for right now, my number 2 favorite mercenary of all time, and one of the main reasons I made this list, because I was just blown away by his character, is Loveday Fitztalbot from Essex Dogs by Dan Jones.
All Loveday knew for certain was that the captain had left them, and that the grief for a friend who had walked away was 10 times worse than for a friend who had been killed.
Yeah, Loveday Fitztalbot is everything I want from Abercrombie characters, but done so remarkably well. Abercrombie, great author. I've mentioned 2 of his characters here. I think he is a very talented fantasy author. My proclivities, my preferences align a little bit more with the noble than him. I like characters a little bit more noble, and much like Jespar, Loveday Fitztalbot fits that bill. Him and his men are a mercenary crew during the reign of King Edward the Black, I believe, and they take on odd jobs for the Church of England during this war, very specific jobs at times, and Loveday Fitztalbot is a character that is not motivated by monetary gain, but war is all he knows, so him and his boys sign on for different wars and different jobs. And the thing about Loveday Fitztalbot is, at the end of the day, it's never about the money. It's always about getting his boys home. Man, the relationship he has with his men is heart-wrenching, it's heartbreaking, it's heartwarming. He is just an awesome character, and I'm very excited to read books 2 and 3 within the Essex Dogs trilogy. I'm excited to see what happens with Loveday's story moving forward. Just an amazing series. I think it is well worth reading. And then number 1, beyond the shadow of a doubt, before I reread The Witcher and enjoyed it more than I originally had, this is what I would tell people. This is The Witcher if it was good. But now I'm like, okay, The Witcher is good. This is The Witcher if it was amazing. And that is Corandir from The Master of Whitestorm by Janny Wirtz.
Quiet, fool! Haldeth felt fear, cold as the touch of bare steel against his neck. The forward oarsman will kick in your ribs if he wakes and hears you. I was named Corandir, and I'm getting off. The words left no chink for argument. Corandir flung off his cloak. He glanced at his nervous companion and said, "Loan me your torch. I'm going to take Whitestorm from Seondeed." "Weak is Seondeed," yelled Corandir. He dropped the torch and flung both hands over his ears. The endless rumbling boom, which followed all but shook the life from his body. He sank to his knees, curled with his face against the bone of the king dragon's skull. Still the thunder pealed. The brimstone smell of scorched rock wafted down the shaft. Sweat dripped from his brow and heated air stung the linings of his nostrils. Huddled and helpless before a violence that paralyzed thought, Corandir closed his eyes. The warmth of high summer cracked the ice from the cliffs of Whitestorm. Frost left the ground for the first time in 15 decades, and life reawakened in the thaw seemed all the more vibrant for its dormancy. Grasses raised blonde heads to the breeze and spread a living, sun-burnished carpet over the heights. The close-woven boughs of thorn forest burst into blue-violet blossom, then shed scented showers of petals to unveil shiny black-green foliage. Overnight, White Rock Head transformed from the frigid, wind-ridden hell of an elemental's caprice to a wide place between sea and sky, where the seasons turned with savage, unspoiled grace. He assumed risks because he did not care, and because he cared too deeply.
Oh my gosh, this is probably my favorite standalone book that I've ever read, though it has some close competition with books like Jerusalem by Alan Moore, but as things stand, this is probably my favorite standalone fantasy novel of all time. And we follow the character of Corandir, and at the beginning of this story, he is a slave. We follow him as he becomes the master of Whitestorm, as he goes on to take on odd jobs. And I mentioned that Geralt is kind of a deconstruction of what it means to be a mercenary. Corandir is a deconstruction while still honoring the history of sword and sorcery and of mercenaries depicted within fantasy, but he deconstructs it to such a degree. It's so beautiful, actually, the way he takes on these odd jobs, these impossible jobs that no one else will. You know, he's doing it for money, he's getting paid, but there's a certain amount of nobility to him. But then it doesn't just examine the nobility of someone that will take on odd jobs that no one else will to defend the weak. It also looks at, why is he putting himself through all this? What is he afraid of? What is he refusing to face? And the character work in this book is bar none. I have not read a standalone to hit the character work that Janny Wirtz is able to hit in this one book. A lot of people know, if you've seen any of my videos, you know that I am a huge Janny Wirtz fan, but the bias is not why I'm saying this. Like, this is genuinely one of the best books I've ever read. And yeah, it's absolutely amazing. The audiobook, oh dang, I'm blanking on his name right now. He did an amazing job. I know he did the Narnia books, which I haven't listened to personally, but he did an amazing job on giving voice to Corandir. If you're ever curious about Janny Wirtz's Wars of Light and Shadow series, I can't speak for To Ride Hell's Chasm. I definitely want to read that soon, but to me, this is one of the best places to start with Janny. I think The Gallant's also really good. Of course, I would say that. I narrated the audiobook, but I think that this is another one that if you want a tight and complete story set within its own world, you cannot go wrong with this amazing, amazing book. So yeah, guys, so those are 10 Mercenaries. So I definitely want to read some more mercenary-centric stories. First that comes to mind is The Black Company by Glenn Cook. I also really want to check out the Blood Sounders arc by Jeff Salyards. I've heard this one's really good. And I have it with me, but I'm not quite sure where it is, so I'm just going to call it out. One of the finalists for Spiffbo last year, The Oath-Sworn Legacy. I believe this is about two mercenary brothers that take on odd jobs, fairy sword and sorcery. Sounds right up my alley, and I don't see a lot of people talking about that book when they talk about last year's Spiffbo finalists. So yeah, I'm definitely reading those three. Like I said, Black Company, Blood Sounders arc, and Oath-Sworn Legacy. So let me know down in the comments below what mercenaries you enjoyed, whether they be from a series that I've already read and you're like, hey Shay, you missed this one, or it could be something that I've never even heard of. I'm always open to book recommendations, and I really love Mercenaries. I love the sword and sorcery vibe of a man or woman taking on odd jobs or taking on different adversaries for money. I just, something about that trope is very enticing to me. And if you have any examples of that, please shout them out down in the comments below. And as always, thanks guys for watching.
Peace.